Welcome to a special video where I answer your questions about Elder Scrolls Online. A lot of you guys have been asking me, is it too late to start the game and what it's all about? With the recent expansion of Morrowind, I decided to go over all of this stuff. So, one, is it too late to start the Elder Scrolls Online even with Morrowind? And the answer to that is no, because there's a lot of things to do, whether you're interested in just the story or endgame PvP or raiding for PvE. All of that is obtainable, and a lot of people still do it to this day, even in pickup groups in the main cities where you could just group if you don't have a guild or something. So I think at this point, anyone can still start this game and still do all the content, and you'll be fine. So next question is about the end game and how long it'll take. So if you were a new player just starting out, I would say to do the normal difficulty ones, the raids, you could probably do that within like less than a month of playing. And if you're trying to do like high-end competitive raids, PvE or PvP, it'll probably take you a few more months after that just to get like everything min-maxed and gear capped. But if you're just trying to experience the raid for the first time, then I think you could probably do that within your first month or two of starting the game. So the way it works right now is there's level 1 through 50, and then after you get to level 50, there's champion points. And then you start at 10, and the current cap is 630. But if you're watching this video like months or years later from this point, the cap is probably raised, but it's probably still the same on how it works. So usually in PvE, the way people have it is they want you to be at least in the champion point levels to do normal trials, and then you could just complete it on your own. So the way gearing works is if you are under level or champion point 160, the gear is going to scale based on what level you are. But after 160, all the way up to the cap at currently 630, everything is still 160. So after that, it's really just min-maxing. Every point still matters after that. But overall, I think in the first 2 months, you'll be fine. But just keep in mind from 1 to 50 and then champion point 10 to 160, all the gear is going to scale. But yeah, so let's talk about the PvP part of it. So they have a few different campaigns, and there's one for people who are level 1 to 50, so you don't fight people like all maxed out. And then there are no champion point zones, and then there are champion point campaigns. So whether you like playing with the extra advantage of champion points, so if you have very little, you might want to play in the no champion point one. Or if you are what we call a lowbie, which is between level 1 to 50 and like a new character or something, then you can always play for that one. So really, regardless of what level you are, PvP is always available for you. But in terms of PvE endgame rating, you could do the normal difficulty ones at any level, technically. But if you're looking for high-end competitive raids, then they're definitely going to want you to be over CP 160, preferably capped. But those are for like the higher-end veteran hard mode difficulty ones. But if you're just looking to experience the story, you can do that at any level. Casual raiding trials, you could pretty much do that early on in your champion points. Another question is, how long would it take me to get champion point level? So that is after 1 through 50. And as a new player, I would honestly recommend just going through the story first, as it is a very good one. And obviously, you guys have known that Elder Scrolls, the series in general, has been known for having a fantastic storyline. So I would play that. But if you're just looking to power level yourself all the way to champion point, then depending on how much time you want to invest in it, I would say for the casual player, getting to champion point would be about maybe a week or two. But if you're an experienced player, you could probably get it in maybe a day. It really all depends on if you're using like experience potions, or if you're an ESO Plus member, which is like the equivalent to the game subscription model, where you get like a 10% extra experience bonus, and there are like in-game items that give you more experience. So it really depends on what you do and how much time you put into it, or like what kind of extra bonuses you have. So just overall, if it's your first character, it's probably going to take you a little bit less than a month. But if you are an experienced player, you can probably do it in less than a day. All right, so next, which also leads me into the next question, is this game pay to win? And I would honestly say this game is not pay to win. Now, they've had a few instances of some parts that were kind of questionable, where it was like buying these like item crafting gems, and that allows you to craft any style material you want, and you can actually sell those style materials, and you break it down and you sell it into gold. Now, I say it is, but it's not really, because it's like I don't really see it happening too often, whereas there's nothing you can buy from the Crown Store which you can actually resell to other people for massive amounts of money. So most of it is cosmetics, and that's pretty much it. So 99% of it, I would say no, it is not pay to win. But there is that 1% with the crown. It's not crown gems, but it's like the orange materials that you use to craft any style you want. You can break that down and sell it to other people. But that's really not a big deal, because you can 100% live without it, and you can also buy the materials itself from like vendors or whatnot. So overall, I would say no, it's not pay to win. And yeah, so another question, these are kind of out of order, but one is, how is the PvP and how is the PvE? Is it like still competitive, or are there still a lot of people playing it? So in terms of PvE, in North America, there's not really much competition, but there is a lot of people still doing ratings and trials, dungeons and stuff. So if you're trying to look at just completion, then I think you'll be fine even to this day, where a lot of people still want to run things just for fun. But in North America, I would say this is not really super competitive. I mean, there are a few guilds who try to compete for number one scores, but it's not like the EU servers where there's like 20 different guilds competing for top scores. In North America, at least this is from what I see, and this is coming from a person who plays this almost every day and has been playing this since beta for like 3 years now. There's maybe like 3 or 4 different guilds in North America that try to go for leaderboards in number one like every day. But if you're just looking for the casual aspect of it, then you can definitely do that. I would say yes and no, kind of competitive, but not super competitive. And in terms of the PvP aspect, that is actually the most endgame for ESO. So like there's a few different things for PvP. One, they have the main Cyrodiil thing, which is like faction based, one big area, and like Ebonheart, Daggerfall, and Dominion, they all just fight for scrolls and all that stuff, get AP. There's a lot of people still playing that, so yes, if you want to do that, there's always going to be someone in the server. And there's also another thing they recently released with Morrowind. It's called Battlegrounds, and that's like the 4 versus 4 versus 4 objective game modes. And I would say a lot of people are doing that. However, the queue system is kind of wonky right now, which is kind of upsetting. So we are currently about 5 weeks into the Morrowind expansion, and they still kind of haven't fixed the dungeon finder, which means like if you're trying to queue in solo, you might join a game that's already midway in progress or your team is losing. I think they're trying to work on that right now, but I mean, I kind of feel like it's a little bit late for that, but I mean, it still works technically. All the people who wanted to join in just for Battlegrounds, they probably quit the game already, since it's, I mean, that's what they wanted to do, and it still hasn't been fixed over a month later. You can technically still do it, but it's kind of broken, so maybe if you're watching this a few months later after this was released, it's fixed. I have no idea. I've played it a few times. I thought like once you're in the game and once you get inside the battleground area, then everything goes fine. But it's just getting into it in general is the issue. But if you're looking for just Cyrodiil events and just world-based PvP, then I think you'll just be fine. You can queue in whatever campaign you want, and you're good to go. And that usually doesn't take that long at all. So this last question I have is kind of a tricky one to answer. A lot of people have been asking me, what is the best class to play? So I would say, to be honest, that all the classes are good in their own way. So it really depends on what do you want to do. Do you want to be support? Do you want to be like one of the healers? Do you want to be like just whatever is the best DPS in the current meta? So it's hard to answer this question actually, but what I can tell you is every class is, one, it's good in their own way, and two, you can play it in two different ways. Every class has a magic and a stamina side of it, so that means like one is like a spellcaster, one is more like melee based. So I like how in ESO where you can just respec it whenever you want. So let's say one day you wanted to be stamina and the next day you wanted to be magic, you can technically do that. It's not that expensive, but you do have to level up your skills that you haven't earned before. So that's one thing you have to keep in mind. And overall, if I were to give you a general basis, now technically you can do whatever you want with any class you want, but in the current meta, Templars are usually the best healers, and they are also very strong for DPS as well. Dragon Knights are more used for tanking, but they are also strong for DPS once again. Nightblades are more for DPS. I've seen a few people do healers and tank Nightblades, but a majority of people who play Nightblades are usually DPS. And Sorcerers, more for not anything but DPS, but they're all fun to play in their own way. And then, of course, with the new Morrowind expansion, they have the Warden. You can actually just do all three roles with that one. Well, not at the same time, but you can play all three roles just fine. So overall, that has been a general one. Sorcerers, DPS, Nightblades, mostly DPS. Templars are more for healer DPS, and Dragon Knights are tank DPS. So it really just depends on how you like playing, what your build is. If you want like a more detailed explanation, you can always ask me in the comments, and I'll be more than happy to review your build or something, tell you what to use. Now, keep in mind, I'm not the best player in the world, but I just have a general idea of what's good and what's not in the game. So overall, I hope you guys enjoyed these quick questions. I know some of these have been asked a lot, and I hope I made it like clearer to you that what are the questions you have. So with that said, if you have any other questions or you want some clarification on anything I mentioned earlier, feel free to leave it in the comments. I'll be more than happy to go over that. So with that said, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys later.